Welcome to episode 95 of the Various and Sundry podcast. I am your host, Matt Harmon, joined live from the Vault Studio on the beautiful campus of Grace College and Theological Seminary by my good friend, my colleague, my co-host, and the man who is wishing he had built an ark in his backyard, John Scott Sloat.
Doc, you almost need it.
Yeah.
It's bad out there.
It's monsoon season here in Winona Lake.
Yeah, I suppose when this drops, it'll stop, though, right?
We hope. I think it's supposed to continue through most of the day. But good for your grass, right?
It's good for the grass. I did get it cut on Saturday, some additional fertilizer put down. So hopefully that has worked its way into the roots and is causing, growth. It needs to warm up a little bit. It was a little cool for grass growth. Indeed.
So let's just get the preliminaries out of the way here. If you want to connect with the podcast, you can find us on Twitter at VNSPod. Email the show, variousandsundrypodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook and on YouTube, Various and Sundry Podcast. Mm-hmm. Those are places where you can find us. We would love for you to take some time to give us a 5-star rating and leave a review for us on whatever platform you consume the show.
It's been a while.
It has.
Middle of September.
Yeah.
Since I've seen – I only check iTunes. I don't check the other ones.
That's true.
But,
same here.
But it's been a minute.
Yes. Speaking of things that have been a minute, let's talk about your Jets playing the –
goodness. I'm already in a bad mood. We want to start out with the Jets?
Well, I get some feedback from some individual listeners about – us being a little saltier, that we need to go a little closer to the hot take or the saltier kind of edgier end of things.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I feel like God's judging the Jets for hiring a Mormon as their quarterback.
Yes. So they lost. I only saw the score. It was 54-13?
Yeah. It could have been.
Was it even that close?
No.
Okay.
No.
So what happened here?
Well, I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it either because I don't,
But you followed the game.
I followed the game
on your phone. Yeah.
Yep. Zach Wilson did get injured. There was a knee injury. I haven't heard anything else about where that injury stands right now. I mean, we just exist to make the Patriots look amazing. I mean, that seems to be the telos of the New York Jets nation right now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's bad. It's real bad. No one looked good.
Yeah.
It was sad. And then the players are upset afterward, like we're upset at the Patriots running up the score. And I stopped them.
Yeah.
Stop them.
Yeah. You have to do some pretty egregious things in my mind to sort of fall under the really running up the score. Mm-hmm. I'm just more of the opinion in sports when it comes to it's your job to stop your opponent.
Yep.
And, there are things like in basketball, if you're up 30, okay, you can pull off the press.
Sure.
Okay. But,
But football's a sport where if you ease off, you can get hurt.
Correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're complaining about that. I'm like, dude, stop them.
Yeah, totally.
And I think some of it's we have a first-year coach with no veteran coaching experience on the staff. And so I think they're just finding their way a little bit.
Yeah.
Which, good for them.
Okay. Yes, indeed. So what does that drop their record to?
I don't know, 1-6? 1-5?
Are we at 7 games already yet? That probably sounds right. Yeah, 1
We had a bye in
1-6. 1-5, 1-6.
Yeah, 1-5, I think.
All right. I watched a little bit of NFL yesterday. What is going on with the Chiefs?
Yeah, I don't know.
They got thumped.
Yeah, by the Titans, who the Jets beat.
And the Titans are I think the Titans have figured some things out. They're a good football team. That's a good win for the Jets.
That's a very good win for the Jets. Yeah.
But I don't understand what is going on with the Chiefs. This offense that used to just look unstoppable now looks very pedestrian.
Yeah.
Mahomes looks a little bit lost, and guys aren't as open as they used to be, and I don't know what's going on there.
I have no idea. I'm trying to think what other games I watched yesterday. I watched a lot of Packers. Who did the Packers play?
The Washington football team.
I watched a good bit of that. That was good. And then I watched the start of the Tampa Bay who did Tampa Bay play?
The Bears.
The Bears, yeah. And that was over in about
in like 5 minutes in.
It was bad.
Yeah.
It was real bad.
And then did you watch any of the Sunday night game last night?
I did not.
That was played, speaking of monsoon season, that was played in a downpour out in San Francisco, and the Colts ended up winning that game. But let's move on to college football.
Okay.
Did you watch any college football?
I watched zero college football.
All right. I watched the Ohio State game, of course.
They played Indiana?
They did. They played at Indiana. My younger son, Jake, went to the game.
Oh, nice.
Boot and crutches and all.
Nice.
Went to the game with a couple buddies.
Nice.
Again, it's Indiana. Indiana's not good.
They made Indiana look silly.
They made them look awful. At the end of the first half, they were up 44-7 going into the halftime. So it was never really competitive. Ohio State scored in their opening drive. IU went down and scored to tie it.
Okay.
And then from there it was just like, turn out the lights. Last one in the building, make sure you turn the lights out.
It's good to know that order's been restored.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do with a decent IU football team.
Yeah. I honestly, I'm a little scared, John, because hope is beginning to percolate. Yes.
Hope is stirring in your soul?
Yes, because the offense is unreal. They had a stretch where through the first half of this weekend's game, their first team offense, when the first team offense was in, they had a stretch where they scored on 19 consecutive drives, and all but I think one of them were touchdowns.
Wow!
Across 3 games, 19 straight. The only thing that had stopped them was when they got the ball like right before the half and decided not to try to rub it into somebody. That's just crazy. Now, again, the competition has been bad, so I get that. But the encouraging thing is it does look like some of the defensive problems have been addressed. And in today's college football world, if you have a great offense, and Ohio State is on track to be on the same sort of historically great offense as Alabama last year and LSU the year before in terms of numbers. The last 2 national champions.
So you need a decent defense.
You need a defense that's just adequate. And, again, Ohio State's got some tests coming up, but it looks like the defense is moving towards adequacy. So we'll see how that develops. Probably the more significant game in some ways was, for entertainment value, Penn State lost to Illinois at home in 9 overtimes. The college football overtime rule is ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of overtimes.
Well, they changed it. I don't know if you knew this.
No.
Okay, so they start with each team gets a possession in overtime, right?
Okay.
Starts at the 25-yard line of your opponent.
Mm-hmm.
So you attempt to score, and then if the score remains tied after the first overtime, they just do it over again. Same thing. Team gets the ball at the 25-yard line.
Okay.
If at the end of 2 overtimes you're still tied, starting in the 3rd overtime, they put the ball at the 3-yard line now.
The 3?
The 3.
Oh, my goodness.
And it's just 2-point conversions.
Oh.
So you alternate back and forth 2-point conversions.
I don't like that.
No, I hate it.
That sounds awful.
Now, what's crazy is Illinois and Penn State were so inept that despite playing 9 overtimes, the final score of the game was 20-18.
Oh, gosh.
So in the first
they kick a field goal on those 2-point conversions.
in the first 2 overtimes, both teams kicked field goals. And then I think that's what it was. Yeah, kicked field goals. And then they both scored in like the 8th overtime, the 2-point conversion. And then in the 9th overtime, Illinois scored and Penn State didn't. It's a dumb rule. Dumb rule.
Yeah, it's a bad rule.
But it did set the record. That's the most overtimes in NCAA history when it comes to football.
My goodness.
Yeah, absurd. So we'll see about that moving forward. Ohio State plays Penn State next weekend.
Okay, big game.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Some of the luster's taken off that by Penn State losing.
Sure.
But, still a big game, night game. Ohio State has no more margin for error, so they just have to keep
They just got to
trucking
win.
people. Yeah.
Yep.
Baseball playoffs. We're now to the World Series. I know you don't care, but I feel morally obligated to at least mention it.
Oh, my goodness. There are no good guys left.
Astros versus Braves.
I mean, the Astros cheated to win a World Series a couple of years ago.
Yes, that's correct.
And the Braves are scum.
Yes.
And
though we did see them in person this year.
We did see them in person this year. And Freddie Freeman is very, very impressive as a human. But there's just no good guys in the World Series.
Yes.
From a Mets perspective.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So speaking of the World Series, do you know what happened 35 years ago today?
Was that the earthquake?
No. 35 years ago today in sports.
My goodness.
1986.
86. Is this the Mets?
Yes. Game 6.
Game 6, Buckner?
Buckner boots the ball.
Nice.
Mookie Wilson.
Nice.
Yes. Who was – I forget. Was it Ray Knight that scored?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still can hear Vin Scully's voice in my head calling that. The Red Sox had the champagne ready to pop in the locker room, and so I thought that'd bring you some joy today.
That brightened my day.
Yeah.
On a day with perpetual rain in every sense of the word.
Yes.
Today has just been rain.
Yes. Yes. Any thoughts on your Knicks? The NBA season's about a week old now.
Yeah, they're 2-1. They got some swag to them. Beat the Celtics in overtime.
I saw chunks of that game, I think. Yeah.
So,
and the guy that we mentioned, Evan Fournier.
Yeah, had a great first 2 games.
Yeah, he's turning out to be a
Fournier.
Nice pickup for you guys.
Yeah, he did not look great in the third game last night, but that's okay.
I didn't check the standings this morning, but last time I checked, the Lakers were still winless. Is that right? Or did they win yesterday?
I have no idea.
They were, and there was a bit of a skirmish on the sideline. Did you see this?
No, I missed that.
A skirmish between Dwight Howard and Anthony Davis.
Really?
Yeah, they got into it early in one of their games. I don't know what the cause of that was, but
let me tell you, I'm always surprised to learn that Dwight Howard's still playing basketball.
Yeah, he's got some pink hair thing going on. But
does he really?
Yeah,
man.
I think it's like a pink or a purple stripe or something like that.
All right. Yeah, the Lakers are 1-2.
So they must have won yesterday.
The Clippers are 0-2.
Okay. Oh, no one's sad about that.
And you're not going to be happy about this. The Warriors are 3-0.
Yeah. Is Klay Thompson back?
I'm trying to remember.
I don't know. So again, this is the busy time of year in terms of sports when you've got all the major sports going, and I assume the NHL has it started?
Yep. It's been going.
Yes.
It was going about a week longer than basketball.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Other than that, I'm not sure what's going on in hockey.
Yeah. Other than the Kraken are now playing, the Seattle Kraken.
The Kraken. Yeah. But other than that, I know nothing. I don't know anything. It doesn't look like Steph Curry's obviously back. Klay Thompson's back yet.
Okay. Anyway. So by the time this drops tomorrow, it'll be game 1 of the World Series will be Tuesday night.
Yep.
So anyway. Well, let's move on to our main topic of the day. We're going to continue our series on the parables, the parable of the workers in the vineyard. So you have us queued up there to Matthew 20.
Yeah, Matthew 21-16.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
I'll give us a fresh read here.
Our designated lector.
Yeah, so let's begin. Verse 1. For the kingdom of heaven is like a master of a house who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for a denarius a day, he sent them into his vineyard, and going out about the 3rd hour, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace. And to them he said, you go into the vineyard too, and whatever is right I will give to you. So they went. Going out again about the 6th hour, and the 9th hour he did the same. And about the 11th hour, he went out and found others standing, and he said to them, why do you stand here idle all day? They said to him, because no one has hired us. He said to them, you go into the vineyard too. And when evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, 'Call the laborers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last up to the first.' And when those hired about the 11th hour came, each of them received a denarius. Now when those hired first came, they thought they would receive more, but each of them also received a denarius. And on receiving it, they grumbled at the master of the house, saying, 'These last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us, who have been borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat.' But he replied to one of them, 'Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give this last worker as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or do you begrudge my generosity?' So the last will be first, and the first last."
Okay. So this is a fascinating parable. Let's talk a little about the context. Make sure you're grabbing onto how it fits in. This parable fits into a series of kind of vignettes here in the Gospel of Matthew that really focus on issues of status, wealth, greed, and discipleship. So, for example, if you jump back to Matthew chapter 19, you've got in verses 13 through 15 the story of Jesus welcoming children to come to him. So that's a status issue.
Sure.
And then you've got the rich young ruler, the rich young man, who Jesus tells to go sell everything he has in order to follow him. He goes away sad. And when Jesus explains the situation to his disciples, he stresses that in verse 28, "Truly I say to you, in the new world," the new creation, "when the Son of Man will sit on his glorious throne, you who have followed me will also sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Everyone who has left houses or brothers or sisters or father or mother or children or lands for my name's sake will receive 100-fold and will inherit eternal life. But many who are first will be last, and the last first." So it's important to catch that the previous vignette ends with Jesus saying, those who are first will be last, and the last will be first. And that introduces essentially this parable, which incidentally ends with this sort of a flipping of that statement. The last will be first, and the first last. So contextually speaking, there's clearly a link between these units here. And that sort of punchline should play a pretty significant factor in giving us a sense of what the parable is about. So let's talk a little bit about some of the key features of the parable, maybe some things that stand out to us, whether it's cultural customs or background pieces that might be helpful to fill in.
Yeah. I'm assuming this was a pretty normal practice by people who owned vineyards and fields and crops and those sorts of things to go out and say, hey, I need some people, to go to the marketplace, look for people hanging around and offer them to come work for him for the day.
Yeah, this practice might seem a little unfamiliar to many of us, perhaps in the U.S., but even in parts of the U.S., this kind of thing happens, especially overseas, where you have a landowner who has specific tasks, especially around harvest time particularly, where he will go to a sort of centralized marketplace and say, okay, I need 7 guys to come out today and I'll pay you this. Come work for me. That's the situation here. This would have been very common. This is sort of a very ordinary thing.
Would it have been normal to go out multiple times and bring back more people?
Not this many times.
Okay.
Perhaps going out more than once would happen. In other words, you might go out in the morning, hire a group, and realize I don't have enough guys, and I got to get this done. So you might go out and see if there's anybody left hanging around in the marketplace who didn't get hired in the first round and say, okay, I could use 3 more guys for the afternoon shift. Can you come out? But going every few hours is, I think, a bit of a parabolic embellishment to make a point, rather than reflect closely some real practice.
Yeah, it's a device of the story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Go ahead.
Would it have been normal to pay everybody the same? Or was this, or would it have been like, okay, I picked you up halfway through the day, I'm going to pay you half?
Yeah, I think that could probably vary. My guess is that it was probably not common to pay the same guy that you hired at noon what you're going to pay the guy that you hired at 7 a.m. or 6 a.m.
Sure.
That would have been unusual, I think. And it's interesting that when you read the parable, the very first group that's hired, it says they agreed after verse 2, after agreeing with the laborers for a denarius a day, he sent them into his vineyard. Now the rest of the incidents of the hiring, there is no specific wage mentioned.
Yeah, there's no negotiation taking place. Yeah,
correct. It just says, let's see, verse 3, going out about the 3rd hour. Again, those are references. Basically, the day started at 6 a.m. essentially, so 3rd hour would be like 9 a.m.
Yeah.
You go into the vineyard too, and whatever is right, I will give you. So there's no specific amount mentioned at that point. A denarius was a typical day's worth of work for a common laborer. That was pretty standard kind of going rate for that. I wanted to mention one other piece of sort of cultural historical background here, and that's found in verse 15 at the very end of the parable, when the landowner says, "Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me?" And then this phrase, "Or do you begrudge my generosity?" And if you happen to be reading out of the ESV, you'll notice there's a handy little footnote that tells you another way of translating that is literally, "Is your eye bad because I am good?" So you can understand why English Bible translators go, yeah, we should probably not go literal there.
Yeah. Maybe a thought-for-thought translation works with this here.
More idiom for idiom, I think, is what's going on there. So, but I do think it's helpful. Is that translation accurate? Yes. But, I mean, here's the idea behind it. Basically, in the ancient world, the evil eye was this belief that some people were able to bring bad things on other people merely by looking at them.
With ill intent?
With ill intent, yes. So this was a common sort of cultural belief.
Okay.
That some people could just look at you with evil intent and bring upon you some sort of bad thing, whether that's through the activity of spiritual forces or whatever.
Is that Roman, Jewish, both?
It's just sort of in the cultural air in the first century. It's more at home in the Roman and Greek context than it probably is in the Jewish context, but still there. In fact, it was common practice in the ancient world for people to wear again, this is more of a probably Greek and Roman thing than a Jewish thing. For people to wear like amulets or necklaces that they believed were capable of blocking or repelling the power of the evil eye. So that this idea of the evil eye is something that was just in the air, part of the culture, so that I think it's helpful to bring that out. Now, the connotations of the evil eye can go a long way, a lot of different directions. Here, I think most English translations see it as envy or greed, right? Is your eye evil? Are you giving me the evil eye because I'm being good or generous to these other people? That's the sense. And so that's how you get this sort of paraphrase of, do you begrudge my generosity? So in light of that, I think that kind of sets the stage. Anything else you want to say on context or background here before we kind of dive in to kind of the main message of the parable?
I don't think so. Is there any significance in it's a vineyard rather than a field? Or we've seen Jesus use several metaphors. Does vineyard have particular interest here?
It might.
Okay.
Based on the Old Testament background of Israel being described as a vineyard, in particular in Isaiah 5, there may be some of those connotations there.
Okay.
But this does not feel to me – this is my personal take – this does not feel to me like an especially Israel-centered parable.
Even with the mention of the 12 tribes in the previous section?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so. Like, I'm not denying that there's stuff in the context there, but this doesn't feel to me as much of a typically those kind of Israel parables are about God bringing judgment upon unbelieving Israel and welcoming in the Gentiles in some fashion. And I don't think that's really in the mix here.
Okay.
Good question, though. So let me ask this, John. Why do you think this parable works so well? In other words, why is it so powerful? What's maybe an underlying assumption here that makes this such a powerful parable?
I think there is sort of the basic – regardless of culture, probably like if we work more than somebody else, we expect to be paid more than somebody else.
Yeah.
Right? So the guy coming in at the end of the day that gets paid a certain amount, the guy that's been working 10 times that expects to get more.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a principle of fairness.
Yeah.
And that differs throughout cultures slightly, but it's there, I think, in all cultures.
Yes. Yeah. I think that is exactly right. That at the root of what's going on here is this very fundamental human sense of, well, that's not fair. I don't care how you slice fairness in your culture. That doesn't feel fair. That someone works that people can work such radically different amounts of time doing the same thing.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we have entire laws on our books here in the United States of you can't vary someone's pay based on different factors if they're doing the exact same job. You can't pay a woman less than a man who is doing the exact same job.
Yeah.
For with all the qualifiers in place. So it very much tugs on our sense of natural fairness. So that's why it works so well, I think, in terms of Jesus invites you to a place as you're tracking along where you identify with these workers who've worked all day and say, yeah, you're right, that's not fair. And that's the point.
Yes. However, it is what they agreed to, right?
It is.
They did negotiate at the beginning.
Correct.
And said, yeah, I'll work all day for that amount of money.
Correct. Yeah. So it's important to point out, again, sometimes I think fairness and justice get mixed together in unhelpful ways.
Sure.
Because you can say, well, this isn't fair, but you can't say this is unjust.
Right. Yeah.
And that's an important distinction. There are just realities in this world where life is not fair. And we should work for justice, but fairness as it's often thought of, it just doesn't work out oftentimes. So what is Jesus' point then in saying this? I think the main thing he's trying to drive at is that God's kingdom doesn't work on the basis of fairness.
Mm-hmm.
It works on the basis of God's justice and also his grace, his generosity. That there's both in play there. Like God doesn't abandon his justice because, as you pointed out, they agreed to work for this amount. They're getting what they are due, justice. It's just that there's also grace in view in terms of some are getting far more than that. And so I think that the main thrust of the parable is to help you see the kingdom of God doesn't work on the principle of fairness. It works on the basis of God's generosity, his kindness, but even that doesn't abandon justice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's helpful, I think, and important for us to understand even as we think about the gospel itself, because sometimes I think we can have this wrong view of the relationship between justice and God's grace and forgiveness, as if God just kind of sets aside his justice so that he can show us, mercy. And no. Romans 3 is really where this kind of comes together, this idea that God satisfies his justice in Jesus so that he can show us grace and mercy without compromising. God must judge sin. He cannot just ignore it.
Totally agree. Is there also in play in this parable the sense that it's not about when or how long you have trusted in Jesus? It's the object of our faith that matters, and if you get in sooner, quote unquote, there's not more blessing or anything like that. There's I don't know what the right word is. There's equal access to blessing to God Himself by virtue of who you're trusting in, not when you trust.
I do think that is here as well. Yeah, that obviously there is some. We have to be careful about not trying to make the parable answer more questions than it's designed to answer. And there is a sense in which we will experience rewards in heaven for our faithful service. So there's a sense in which the longer you've been in the kingdom, the longer time you have to be able to serve the Lord in that sense. But when it comes to getting in and experiencing access to God and all of his blessings in that sense, whether it's 10 minutes before you pass away or from the earliest days, even before you can remember as a young child, there's equal standing, equal footing in God's kingdom.
And the passage is not advocating for, shoot for a deathbed conversion, right? Shoot for an 11th hour conversion.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I think that would be misrepresenting the parable.
Right. Yeah. So, and then ending on that, so the last will be first and the first last. That sort of reversal of how things tend to work here in this world, in the kingdoms of this world. It's the opposite in God's kingdom. So,
I had a teacher that would always say, Christian elementary school, we'd line up and go, the first last first, and then she'd switch us. And so being the proactive child that I was, I would try to game the system. So I'd either run to the front and hope she didn't say that or slow walk it to the back and hope she did. Because for some reason I want to be at the front, and now I want nothing else but to be at the back.
Yes. You've converted to being a back row Baptist.
Yeah. I don't even know if, regardless of religious tradition, I want to be in the back. I like being able to see everything. Like being in the back of the room.
Let's be honest. I don't think that's unique to Baptists. I think that's just the alliteration that the Baptists get thrown under the bus for the back row Baptist.
I agree.
I've been in enough other kinds of churches where it's like, there's nobody Baptist here, and they're still flocking to the back rows. There's plenty of Presbyterians and free churchers and all sorts of
atheists flock to the back, I'm pretty sure.
There you go. Well, Let's move on to people who flock to the front. We need an athlete, John.
Oh my goodness, what a transition. Okay, well let's do our tradition. I'll read these out, and then you tell me who the athlete is. Okay.
Okay. Let's savor this, John, because we've only got a few episodes left where we're going to do this.
Yeah, and we have a plan. I don't think we're ready to reveal.
We're not ready to talk about it.
Yeah, we're not ready
publicly.
to reveal the plan.
It's up on the glass planning board that we've got in our massive conference room here in the
in our minds. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, athletes. Richard Dent.
Does that name ring a bell at all?
He sounds like a Batman villain to me.
Okay. He was a defensive end, 83 to 97, most famously on those Bear defenses in the mid-'80s that were just
Bears,
dominant.
Greg Lloyd?
Do you remember him?
I do not.
Okay. Yeah, it would have been a little bit before your time. Well, in your earliest years.
In my earliest years, yeah.
He was a linebacker for the Steelers primarily.
Okay.
Played for the Panthers as well. He was a pretty dominant player himself. Next.
Bubba Smith.
Yeah, before my time. Defensive end, Colts, Raiders, Oilers from 67 to 76.
Alexei Morozov.
Yeah, I think that's how you pronounce it. I don't know.
Just went with it.
He played right wing from 93 to 2014. He's Russian. So
obviously,
yes. Played for the Penguins, but that 93 to 2014 window includes also him playing in other professional leagues around the world, not just the NHL.
Yeah, there is a very popular Russian league.
So, and then for Ohio State, Cam Johnston was one of their initial Australian punters. You know, there's a huge trend of these Australian punters coming to the United States to go to college and then eventually hopefully get into the pros. Guys that grow up as kind of rugby players and then they specifically train to make the transition to playing American football.
And they can do some interesting things with the football.
They can, yes. So he was a punter at Ohio State from 2013 to 2016, was on their national championship team. Was a Ray Guy finalist, which is the award given to the best punter in the country. And punters don't get drafted almost never anymore. I mean, punters are a dime a dozen, really. He's played for the Eagles until his current season, where he plays for the Texans.
A lot of punting opportunities on the Texans.
Yes, yeah, he might have to soak that leg. After every game. So. Any strong inclinations towards somebody on this?
I have zero strong inclinations. I like the Bears' 85 defense.
All right, let's go Richard Dent. Okay. One thing you liked.
Andrea and I got a fireplace finished and stoned this week, and so it is warm and it is beautiful.
I love a good fireplace. You know that obviously from our house.
Oh.
A good gas fireplace, pumping out the heat.
Oh, yeah.
Curled up in front of that, reading a good book, having a nice conversation, watching a football game maybe.
Oh, yeah. Let me pull up some photos for you here.
Yeah, it's my wife will say that is the best home improvement that we have done on our home in the 15 years that we've owned it, is adding a gas fireplace in our living room. No, that's nice. Yeah, that's really nice. Yes. I remember you talking about that, but I didn't realize that was going to happen.
It's been a month-long process. So the guy showed up, I can't even remember when, but framed it out and installed it. And we've been able to use it.
The inset, the insert there with the actual fireplace. Yeah.
The actual fireplace. But it's been basically sheetrock for, goodness, 3-4 weeks. And then finally the stone guys were able to come and put the stone in it. It looks
that looks great.
It looks sharp.
It looks great. Gotcha. Okay. So for me, I am going to go with something much less substantial. So my wife and her parents went up to Amish country up in Shipshewana.
Nice. What did they bring you back?
They brought me back some of the most amazing cookies I've had in a long time. I mean, they rival a Laura Levon cookie,
oh my goodness,
which is a reference that only you will understand in our former life group.
Yeah.
But there were these caramel maple cookies. Oh, so good.
That
Peanut
sounds
butter
delicious.
cookies. The Amish know what they're doing when it comes to those kinds of
Well, yeah, they just throw sugar at the problem. that seems to be their solution.
and not a bad one.
No. I think it's a fine solution.
Yeah,
In the short term, it's a fine
sure,
solution.
Sure, it's not the greatest for your health, but oh my goodness, just man, I am so grateful for my wife thinking of me and bringing those cookies back for me. So there you have it, episode 95. So just as a recap, the Jets are still bad.
Oh, abysmally so.
The Buckeyes look a little better. God's kingdom doesn't work on the principle of fairness. We selected a 85 Bear for our
Harvey
athlete.
Dent. Yeah.
Richard
Dent.
Yeah, not Harvey Dent. Yeah. And John and his lovely wife are now enjoying their fireplace.
Oh, yeah.
So I think by definition, we have covered our various and sundry topics. So let's call mission accomplished.
Sounds good.
We got plenty to do the rest of the day here. So I think all that's left to say at this point is, until next time, the Lord bless y'all real good.
Later.